Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another programming video. It's been a long time since the last one that we had where we discussed Symfony forms. And I do agree that that one was done using very unorthodox methods. Well, let's just say it wasn't supposed to go like that. We were not using CSRF protection. So it was very questionable the way that we were doing things. Not using CSRF protection is a big problem. Definitely in bigger applications. In a to-do app for you, it's not a problem. But when we're talking about an application that is run with other users in mind and a professional application, you don't want that as a problem. So I'm aiming to fix that. And we can do that with logins and all that sort of stuff. So there's a ton of stuff that I want to implement that as I'm learning it, want to teach you guys and make this video as sort of a a way of me referring back to my videos in case I forget something, something like that, an archive. So we're gonna change a lot about this application. This is what it currently looks like, and this is what I'm sort of aiming for. So this one has routing, server-side routing, working with browser router. It has a drawer where we have a second entity, which is tags. So we have tags or categories in to-do list, okay? And we have the updating here in the thing as well. So we can actually go to category list right now, and it will take us to the correct component. Login button, we're gonna have a theme toggle button here as well, and that's gonna be it. And we're gonna have an actual theme working on it as well, because currently there is not really a theme going on our application. So app bar, login, toggle for theme, drawer, an actual theme working, and we'll see what else we can do in the meantime. So let's get started. Let's go back to the master branch and let's create a new branch called theming. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into our components and we're going to make a new folder, a new directory. We're going to call these themes. And inside here, we're going to create our own theme provider, which we're going to call the default theme provider.js. Okay. And we're going to create a functional component out of this. We might change this to a class component later down the line, but for now, a functional component works just fine. Now, this functional component needs to have its props put in so that we can pass down the props.children through here. So this is going to wrap around our app, so we need to make sure that it can still go inside of it. So by using props.children, anything inside of the default theme provider can just be passed straight through. So there we go. And then this we're going to change to the MIUI theme provider, which if we don't have access to it. So let's import named MIUI theme provider from Material UI core, and we need to give this provider a theme. Now that theme we will make right here. So we can say const theme equals create MIUI theme, and this is just a function like so. Now inside here we can override things using an object. So if you look at the default theme, this is what a theme by Material UI looks like, what is inside of it, and it's basically just a ton of arrays and objects. So let's take a look here at the one that I'm interested in, which is palette. So palette type light, I want to change that to dark. So let's go to the palette, inside there, the type, and we want to change that to dark, like so. So that will change the app, not a lot. Oh no, wait a minute, not at all, because we're not wrapping anything around here at the moment. So let's do that. Let's wrap our theme provider around here. So the default theme provider, and we're gonna close that off, and we're gonna wrap the app component inside of here. Okay, and let's reload now, and errors, and another error. Okay, because the theme is empty, so let's provide that theme to the theme provider actually, and there we go. So now you can see that we have set it to dark mode and it's actually dark, so it's working. That's good. If we set this back to light mode, then there you go, it's back to light mode. So we're going to set that to dark for now, and we're going to keep it like so. And we're going to take out the CSS baseline. I don't want to render that there. I want to render that here. So inside here, I'm going to say CSS baseline and call it from within the theme provider right here. So now we have a theme going on. A very simple one, but it works. Okay. So there's a lot of different things that we can do at this point. So like I said, we can override things using this method. So we can look through all these things. So if we want to change a breakpoint, for example, we would go into breakpoints. Inside there, we would go into keys. And then inside those keys, we can change these names, or we can go into values. We can change the values of these, stuff like that. We can all change that. It's very malleable, very changeable. And if you want to nest themes, that's also a possibility. You can literally call this theme wherever you want, as many times as you want, and supply that theme to it. Or create a new theme anywhere else. So you can create a new theme in, for example, your dashboard component, and wrap the entire theme around only the dashboard component. So the dashboard component is going to have its own theme separate from the other components. Now, another cool thing that we can do is styling, and that there's a lot of different ways to do this. So the one that I'm going to be most interested in is withStyles and CreateStyles, makeStyles, and am I missing anything? UseStyles. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can do depending on what kind of component you have. So I, for example, here have a functional component. So I have access here to, and by the way I've done this is horrible. Don't do this. The amount of use states that I've gotten. You can just use one, by the way, but we'll go over that in another episode. So the styles. We can create const classes equals UseStyles. UseStyles. And that is going to be a function. Now, the way that this is done is strange. It's actually pretty darn strange. So let's look at UseStyles, if I can find it. I think it's this one, UseStyles. There we go. So const class is UseStyles, and we need to create a const UseStyles with makeStyles attached to it, and then we can also attach the theme to it. So let's look at the theme. This is how we do that. Okay, so let's go to the top here, and we can say const UseStyles equals makeStyles, like so. Import that from the Material UI core, and inside there we can pass the theme, so we have access to the theme, and then that's going to be another function right there, which inside of it is going to have curly brackets. Okay, cool. And then inside here, we can actually provide styles. So let's say, for example, I want something completely different for the table head. So in table head, for example, I can set a background color, for example. And let's set that to red. Just as a rough example. And that class is right here. We have access to it here. So we call the function UseStyles, which is this one. So this equals to an arrow function. That arrow function gets called when we call UseStyles, which returns classes alongside a bunch of other things. But the classes is the ones that we're interested in. And now we can go into our T-head. So let's look at table head right here. And then we can go to class name. And instead of a string, we can provide it with classes.T-head. Simple as that. Now let's take a look at what that looks like. And now the table head is red. Pretty simple. Pretty cool, but it can get really complicated. So there's makeStyles, which uses UseStyles, but at the same time, there's also CreateStyles, and the differences between them is marginable. So I did a little bit of testing beforehand, where I oh, hold on a second. Let's revert that back. Let's commit the changes for now. I'm going to add a basic theme, commit that, and let's check out the testing that I did. So in here, I have made use of CreateStyles, and that is dealt in this way. So we have a const styles equals theme, that has then, so that's a theme functional component, or a theme function that creates styles, and inside there you pass down the styles. So this is a method, and you know what? I'm just going to copy this to put it alongside our normal theming here. So there's these two methods. And let's just get rid of this to simplify the way it looks. So these different ways of doing it. So, and this you would then use withStyles with. So if I want to wrap the styles in around this component, a higher order component, I would need to use withStyles. So let's say we're not using this. I know this is complicated. It's just as complicated for me as it is for you, but just read their documentation. There's lots of it. There's lots of different ways to do this. So if you want to do this with a higher order component, which usually you'd only do with a class component as far as I'm concerned, we can export this component with these styles. So we can say, I'm going to comment this one out as well. So where we export the component, we can say withStyles, and then the actual styles that we have. So that's the styles that's at the top of our thing here. And then the component, which also has to be wrapped around in these parentheses. And then we insert it from Material UI core. So now what we do is we wrap the styles, which are up here, around the to-do table component, at which point it can get it from, and we need to destructure here. So destructuring is you put curly brackets around whatever you want to get out of whatever you're looking at, which is props. So we are getting classes now from props. So now it works the exact same way. It still goes from classes.thead, but the way it reads it is much different. Okay, we're getting errors. What is it? Props not defined. Okay, cool. I need to go to my to-do table. So we do need to pass in props now. And there we go. It works the exact same way, but when you want to use these different things, you really need to do your research, because I'm still learning that myself. When to use UseStyles, when to use makeStyles, when to use CreateStyles, when to use withStyles. Really annoying and complicated, but when it comes to functional components, this method with UseStyles, so this one will suffice. That will suffice. And then when you want to look at class components, then you would want to use the withStyles, as far as I'm told. So the withStyles you want to use around class components, UseStyles together with makeStyles you want to use within functional components. The thing is though, is that withStyles works with both class and functional components, whereas UseStyles is a hook that can only work inside functional components. A hook being this. This is a hook, the UseStyles. That's a hook, which we can only call within functional components, or within the render method. So while it is possible to also use, it's probably also possible to use this within class components, but it's not supposed to. Really just read the documentation. There's a lot to it. I have not gone into it that deep yet, but it can get really complicated, but you don't have to make it complicated. So we're just going to use styles right here. We're not going to look at CreateStyles. We're going to look at makeStyles. So there we go. Now, what can we do next? Well, we can change a lot of things really when we have access to the theme. So not only can we override things, and we have access to the theme, by the way. Didn't tell you that, right? So we can look at the theme here, and we can look at the palette. We can look at the primary, and we can get the main primary color, for example, which in this case will be, and I am missing some things. What am I missing? Styles is not defined. Oh yeah, of course, I did not remove withStyles. So withStyles can get rid of that. Refresh. And there we go. So now we have the default primary color, which is sort of blue. And we can change that if we want to in our theme, or right here. We can, just give it a color by what we want. So let's say FFF, which is white. So that will return us a white, well, it should have been a white T-head, but oh, wait a minute, hashtag. There we go. And now we have a white table header. Now, if we want to have access to the theme palette and we want to change the way this works, for example, that is also pretty easy to do. We can go into the theme provider, and inside the palette, we can also have access to primary. And we could change that to, let's say, indigo. So now the primary color has been changed to indigo from blue. Of course, that doesn't work. There we go. And now indigo is the default color. Little bit has changed. Let's actually make it a little bit of a different color so that we can see the difference. So in our theme provider, indigo, switch that to red, which is the Material UI version of red. So let's do that, refresh, and now that's red. We also have amber, for example. There's a lot of different colors in Material UI that you can use. There we go, amber. And now it has an amber color, and that amber color has dark, light, and main. So we can also, instead of doing this, we can also individually set these. So inside primary, we can now go and touch the main, and we can say, for example, amber dot, and then the values that we want. So by default, it would be 500. This is the default main, but we can change this to, let's say, 100. So now this will be a lighter version of the amber. And we can also go to 900 to make it darker. You see? Pretty straightforward, pretty cool. Now, that only changed the main, but it doesn't change the light and the dark, and it doesn't change the light and the dark depending on the main either. So, and we can check that actually by just console logging the theme. So let's log the theme right here. So here's our theme, and we have our palette right here, and we have our, let's see, our primary, and we have our main, and the main is set to that color that we implemented, but the dark and the light are still the default RGB colors that are defined by Material UI. So if we want to override those as well, then you'd have to go in and change those. So we can go and say light, we could change the light version of this color to, let's say, amber, and then let's say 100, something along those lines. But some components support main, light, and dark, and other components do not. Or secondary colors by default. So an app bar, for example, and the fill-out form, so these ones, these take the primary color by default. You can see that it changes to the primary color. Not all components have this, though. For example, these components, they need to be explicitly told to use this color. So if we go to the to-do table, we can go to, let's go to where we delete them. So this is the icon button, and the icon button for that delete, we can set a color to that, and that color we can set to, let's say, primary, and now that will be a orange button. So you can see it's orange now. Okay, cool. And the same goes for secondary, which by default is red. So there you go, red. Okay, cool. And then we can do the same thing for the create here. So on the other icon button, we can say color, the primary. So primary. So now we have a primary color and a secondary color right here. And we can just change these on the fly with our theme right here. So let's actually remove this and just say amber on primary. And on the secondary, let's make that, well, there's lots of different colors in Material UI, so let's go and look at their colors. So let's go in here and go to color on Material UI, and here you can see all the different colors. If you go down here, you can see red, pink, purple, blue, indigo, deep purple, light blue, cyan, teal, lime green, light green, green, yellow, amber, orange, deep orange, brown, and gray, and blue-gray. So lots of different colors, and they're all Material UI objects that you can call. So let's call, for example, we have an orange base color. So let's make the other color, let's make it green. Let's make it green. So let's do green, which we can import. So we have our colors right here, indigo and red as well. And it's a named import. So we can also say green. We can call that from Material UI core colors. Okay. Let's refresh, and now we can see that, what did I just do? Secondary is green, primary is amber. So yeah, okay, the amber is now this color, which I'm personally not much of a fan of. I prefer to have the dark version of this. I mean, of course, we could just shift it. We could just go into our theme, and we can say the primary, and instead of that, we can just go to dark, or sorry, the main. And I want that main to be, well, I could probably, can I self-reference this? Ooh, that would be interesting. So let's go to the primary dark and set that as the main. Oh, let's see if that works. No, it doesn't like that either. I'm testing things out as you go along as well. Palette of undefined at, okay, palette undefined. Yeah, okay, so this does not work. It cannot self-reference, which is fine. So let's go to the primary color, which is amber. And we want a dark color, so let's go 800. And that will now be the primary default. So there you go. And, well, I don't really like this green color for delete. I prefer to have a, actually, I want to swap these around. So I'm going to go and swap this to secondary and this to primary. And let's look at it again. So now we have this green, this orange. Okay. What if I don't want orange, but I want to have red instead? There you go. Just change it like so. And now we have a red button. So fiddle around with this. There's tons of stuff that you can do in here. In terms of using the theme, in terms of using the used theme, UseStyles. So this is a way you can call the theme from anywhere in your lower components. You can have UseStyles to call a function right here above a functional component. And then there's also withStyles, which was that CreateStyles method that we had here. So I'll put it in right here. So that was, oh, it's not in here. Hold on. This one. So this is the CreateStyles method, which you would use in a higher order component, withStyles, which you would wrap around your component right here, and you'd have to deconstruct it from props, and you'd have to, of course, pass in props in here. So props right here, and then destructure it with const classes equals props. And then you have access to classes as well. So that is basic theming. A basic theme that just works. We're not going to fiddle around too much with it. I don't really need access to the theme here anymore. I'm just going to say const classes equals UseStyles. Okay. And let's see, we can delete this. And we don't need props. And that was still the same. And let's see, where else do I call the theme dot? Let's see here. So that is fine. So the T head, that's still different, which is fine. And anywhere else where I call this? No. Okay, that's fine. Let's go to the icon buttons. Check if they are the same color. Secondary and primary. Okay, and reload. Yeah, and this is what our application looks like for now. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at is probably the app bar and drawer. Although there is another thing that I want to show you, which is fixtures with the database. But I think for now we're just going to focus on the front end, and later we're going to go back to the back end and logins and authentication and all that sort of stuff. So this has been a long video, but there's a lot about styling, a lot of things that you can figure out, and like I'm learning along with you guys as well. There's a lot to it. When to use UseStyles, makeStyles, CreateStyles, withStyles. So withStyles, CreateStyles, mostly for class components. UseStyles with makeStyles. So like so for functional components. That is the best way to do it. But you can also still use inline. There's no problem with just using inline here as well with style. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to for very specific things. But this is what you want to use if you want a global style along with a bunch of things. But not only that, but you also have access to different things, you know? Like we can change the padding, for example, of the T head to another thing that is inside the default theme, which is a theme and then spacing And then I think let's go to the default theme right here. So we have spacing, and it's a function that takes something. Okay, so we can say spacing and then 2, for example. Okay, and that t head is still applied, so let's refresh. And it should now have a little bit more spacing by a factor of 2 in terms of Material UI values. Let's change that to a 4. Let's see, it's a little bit pronounced. Let's change it to 10. Let's see how it pronounces that. Okay, that didn't change all too much. Let's not use t head. Let's use td. Okay, classes.td. Let's go to a table cell for task, class name, and then classes.td. So let's see this one. Yeah, that one has a ton more padding right now than it used to have. So let's go back to here. Let's change that to 1. Now the padding is a little bit less. You can see that. If we completely remove that, then nothing gets overridden. It has the default padding. And we can also set it to like 2, and it has a little bit more padding. We can set it to 10. Now it has a lot of padding. You can see that. So there's a lot of the default things that you have inside that theme that you really should take a look at. This is also where you can find things about the breakpoints. If you want to change those, you can change them in here as well. So in breakpoints values, and in here the XS, SM, medium, large, XL, you can change all of those, and you can calculate the width of the window and everything, all sorts of things, and mix-ins, which we will use later, where we can look at the height of a toolbar. So if we have an app bar, for example, and there is content that needs to appear below it, what we can do is we can change the height of the component below it to account for the size of the toolbar perfectly. So a lot of that sort of stuff, and then based upon if it's landscape or portrait mode, lots of things here, and then shadows as well, typography. You have access to the H1 object here. If you want to change, let's say, the fonts family of H1, by default it's Roboto as standard. You can change that as well. You can add your own fonts in here as well if you want to. And as far as I know, there's also a way to add in your own sets of things. So let's say you have an H1, but you want to create like H1.5, I think there is a way to do that. I currently have not figured it out yet, but I think there is a way to create your own custom styles for fonts as well, if you want to implement those. But let's need to learn that as well. Let's see, we got shapes, we got transitions in here, and z-index, default indexes for things that you want to show. So you can have access to those as well. Take a read through that, but the most thing that you want to read is the makeStyles, withStyles, and all that stuff. One more thing I want to show you that I've been putting off until now is responsive font sizes, which is a little thing that you can also do. So let's see TypeScript here. So no, this one, Typography. And this is it, responsive font sizes, which is a function that will change the font sizes of H1s, H6s, subtitles, everything based upon the width of the viewport. So if the viewport is, let's say, 1920, it will go to it looks like 1 rem. And when it is, or actually, let's take a look here. So this is the amount of rems. So if the viewport is big, it will use 5.9983 rems on H1, and it will shrink down all the way to 4 rems. So yeah, you can see font sizes in rems. So just below 4 rems when it is when the viewport size is the smallest, and it scales up like this. And then subtitles basically never change. So what you want to, how you want to do this is you want to look at a const and you want to create like responsive theme. Wow, I cannot type today. Responsive theme equals, and then we can call responsive font sizes and import that and just pass in the theme through that. And now, instead of giving this theme as the theme, we want to use the responsive theme. So responsive theme. We want to pass that down here. Okay? So that is that. So now we have responsive font sizes. So let's see if we can see that in action. Not really. Let's add a little thing here to our app right here. Let's add a typography with a variant. Let's import this variant of an H1, and let's say title. So now we have that title in here, and now if we resize the window, you can see it's scaling down as we scale up and down, which is super useful, super handy if you're making mobile applications, because in mobile applications, you don't want that huge ass font size. You don't want that. So you want it to shrink automatically, and that's what responsive font sizes takes care of for you, which is just awesome. So this is all that I wanted to show you for now. This video is now 35 almost minutes long, so thank you for sitting through it, but there's a lot that I showed you, a lot that I taught you about makeStyles, UseStyles, all that stuff. Don't need to recap it. And a way to set up theming and all that crap and the responsive theming. If you have any further questions, please do let me know in the comments. I respond to every single comment. So that, and yeah, there's going to be more videos coming in the future. So we're going to look at drawer, we're going to look at routing, we're going to look at an app bar, we're going to look at fixtures with Symfony, we're going to look at authentication, users, login, all that sort of stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you liked it. Check out my Twitter, Instagram, Discord, all in the description down below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and if you really hated the video, you know, that dislike button is still there. But thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.